with that is this: if you're going to keep control, keeping control normally means being hard and tough. Demonstrating empathy means being soft and gentle. So we want you to keep control while also being soft and gentle. Okay, so it's effectively just leading the client. And the way in which you can lead the client is by using something called spin. And spin, I'm going to talk you through it rather than worry about what's in the book, because spin is just simply a formula or a process that you can go through where each of the letters of spin, S, P and I-N, they stand for situation, problem, implication and need. And in your circumstances, this is used in a lot of different selling and sales situations. Okay, but it can be used by you guys to help you get appointments. The first thing I'd like you to focus on is the need is always going to be the same. What does this client need from you? What does the client need from you?
Hearing assessment.
Go on, Chris, what do they need?
Hearing assessment.
Right, the client needs a thorough hearing assessment. Right? So where this is always going to end up, doesn't matter what happens up here, they only have one need as far as you're concerned, and that is a thorough hearing assessment. Okay, so everything leads to a thorough hearing assessment. So it goes like this. Let me just talk you through an example of how this works. So we've telephoned the customer and we have realised that we've got the right person. Okay, so the call might start like this. Good morning, can I speak to Mrs. Jones? Yes, that's me. Mrs. Jones, I'm telephoning today to follow up on the inquiry you've made about your hearing. She says, yes. That tells me this is the type 2 person. She's acknowledged that. What I'm now going to do is say to her, may I ask you, in what situations are you having difficulty? In what situations are you having difficulty? Now, if she says to me, well, generally my hearing's not very good, I need to go back and ask the question again. Can you give me an example of a situation where you're having difficulty? Because I want this to be a specific situation. So I want to know, is it when she goes to church? Is it watching TV? Is it when the grandchildren come round? What is a specific situation where this person has difficulty? Because I need to know that in order to make the later bit work. Okay, so let's just see how this goes. So, may I ask you, in what type of situation do you realise you're having a difficulty? And she might say, well, I really love going to church, and I've realised recently that I can't hear what the minister says, and I can't really take part as well as I would like to. I'm now going to demonstrate empathy by saying to her, first thing I'm going to say to her is, oh, I'm going to show some sense of, oh, that must be awkward, or oh, that must be difficult for you. I can see how that might be difficult for you. So we're demonstrating some empathy, but we're going to do that because the next question we want to ask is, what sort of problem does that cause for you? What sort of problem does that cause? So we've asked them first, is there a specific situation, or in what situation do you find you're having a difficulty? Which when I go to church? Oh, I understand. I understand that. What problems does that cause for you? Well, it just really means I have to struggle. I try so very, very hard and struggle to hear, but I sometimes, mishear things. I'm sorry to hear that. And what sort of impact does that have on you? Okay, and you might choose to use this word impact rather than implication. Because the moment you use the word impact, what the person's now going to start to do is to start to talk about how this situation makes them feel. What's going to decide whether they have this hearing test or not? Remember, they make decisions based upon how they feel. And this is the way of getting someone to talk about the situation, how it's a problem for them, and how this now makes them feel. So once they say to you things like, or specifically, when I go to church, I just don't enjoy the service anymore. Well, tell me what happens. In what way is that a problem for you? Well, I mishear a number of things that are said, and I can't hear the church readings, and well, that must be awful. How does that impact upon you? Well, I don't go anymore. I spend my Sunday mornings just listening to the radio and turning the service up on the radio, but oh, that must be terrible. I'm sure you're missing out on all of that, wonderful congregation and that feeling that you have when you're with people. So this is where you now start to use those negative words that we talked about yesterday afternoon to help this person realise the negative emotion that sits in that scenario. And this is the pushing the spring down to the floor that we talked about yesterday. Now, just before we tell them what they need, you remember what the need is, don't you? You remember what they need? What do they need? Thorough hearing assessment. I now want to give you a little magic phrase. And this is a really, really good set of magic words. So write these ones down, please. And it goes like this. Based upon what you've told me, I would like to suggest, or I would like to recommend. Based upon what you've told me, I would like to suggest, or based upon what you've told me, I would like to recommend, whichever word feels better for you. That you have a thorough hearing assessment, which we can do without any obligation.